This video provides a brief introduction into the requirement management capabilities of WinA&D. Requirements can be used in any type of project, including a software development project or a software testing project. And we're going to start by opening up an existing project where we have a data dictionary and an associated requirements document. So our requirements document consists of a list of requirement entries with detailed information behind each of those entries. And we can see they're kind of organized into groups. We can click the new button to create a new requirement entry. And when we when we complete this dialog, we'll add a new entry to this list. So requirements can be grouped by namespace. That's an organizational feature that can be used for requirements, for diagrams, and all the other types of documents that you can create within the WinA&D environment. You can organize things in a naming convention using as many different namespace names as you want to create. So we're going to add a new requirement to the matrix namespace, and then we can type a group name if we have a collection of requirements related to a certain group of functionality within the software product that we're developing. Or if we've already created some requirements on our drop-down, we'll have the opportunity to select existing group names within that namespace. And then finally, we can add the local name of our requirement. So for this example, let's just call it RQTX. And the final thing we're going to do is we're going to select from a template. So we can create different templates that provides a structure into which information is entered for that specific requirement entry. We have a couple of templates already created. So we're just going to select one of these templates and we're going to click OK. And when we do that, we have created a requirement entry. It shows up in the list. We see the name of a requirement here. And in the definition field, if we click on that field, it presents a dialog using the template we've selected, into which now we can enter the various fields of information that we want to collect for this specific requirement entry. Let's examine the requirement definition dialog in more detail. We see it consists of three sections. We have a details section, a description section, and a comment section. For example, the details section consists of a set of fields. And for each field, there's a short value area where we can put the value of that field. All this, the different sections in the individual fields within the details section, this is all defined within the template used to define this requirement definition dialog. In the priority field, for example, we may have some predefined choices. And if we right-click on that field, we might decide to assign this requirement low priority. And on the status field, maybe we have different states that that requirement can exist in. Initially, it would be in the proposed state. Once somebody has reviewed it, it might go to the approved state. Once implemented, to the implemented state. And once it's been fully tested, to the validated state. If you decide that this requirement is not going to be implemented in this phase of the software, you might decide to assign it to the postponed state. You could have an author for the requirement. The person is assigned to. There might be some different choices for the category. For example, this is a different categories into which you could divide your requirements. So basically, you have a set of these fields in the details section. In the description section, you have one or more paragraphs of information that fully defines that specific requirement entry. And in the comments field, this might be a place where various participants in the process could enter comments about that requirement. All these sections and all these fields and the choices associated with the fields, all that information is defined by the template that we're using. And we'll see how that's done a little bit later in the video. So now that we see how we can use a requirement definition dialog to construct a specific requirement entry, let's look at the template that was used to control what this requirement definition dialog looks like. So let's go to the requirement template manager, and within this dialog we can create as many different templates as we want. You could have different types of templates for different types of requirement entries. For example, in this template, we have several sections. There's a section called details where we start it with pound section name, one or more lines of text, and then the terminating pound. And this is a special kind of section that consists of individual fields. Each field consists of a field name and then this information here defines, for example, predefined choices for that field. And we'll look at that a little bit more depth in just a moment. We have a second field here called status with its predefined choices and so on. And here's another section, this section called description, which terminates with this pound character. And likewise, here's a comment section that's terminated with that pound. So this is the overall structure of a little syntax used to define the requirements template. Now you could learn the syntax of the template manager and construct your own template that way, but it'd be easier just clicking the build template button, bring up a dialog, and from this dialog you can add different fields and sections. For example, if we select priority field, we see the name is priority and it's of type string. It has several choices separated by vertical bars, low, medium, and high. Status is also a string field with different choices, proposed, approved, and so on. If we look at description, we can see it's of type memo, indicating that it's a free format editing area. And if we wanted to add our own field name, we can just click new and give it a name. And then we'll define some choices. Let's say Sue, Tom, and John are potential testers. If we want to allow the user to enter their own name in that field or select from one of the available choices, we'll go with selected, suggested. Otherwise, if we want to enforce one of these names from the drop-down, we'll go with enforced. And now if we click new, we see we've added this new field called test. Well, let's change that to tester. Okay, so we have our new field name defined there, and let's click OK, and we see this new field has been added to our template manager here in the definition of this template. And we're going to click OK and actually use this to define a new requirement. So we'll define a new requirement by clicking new and naming that requirement. Let's just call it RQT2. We're going to go with our standard template that we've been working with. We're going to click OK. Here's our new requirement entry has been added. When we click in the definition field, up pops the requirement definition dialog. We can see we have all the existing field names, including the new one we just added. If we place our cursor in that field and right click, then we can choose from one of the available choices. A project may consist of hundreds or even thousands of requirements. These requirements are used by different people in the process for marketing, development, testing, or management. And a good way of analyzing this large base of information is to use the requirements matrix. We're going to take a look at that now. First, we want to make sure that the matrix capability is enabled. So we're going to bring up preferences, go to features, and make sure we have the requirements matrix checkbox set. And now we can go to requirements matrix and bring up this window. And you'll see that the requirements matrix window is essentially kind of like a spreadsheet where we have different columns across the top. These are the different fields of or sections within our requirements. And then we have a set of rows. These are the various requirement entries. We can control the columns across the top based on the selected view, and we can control the different rows that we want to see for specific requirement entries based on the query that we have selected at the top. Let's take a look at a specific view. In this case, we're going to select brief summary. And when we do that, we see that we have a subset of the available columns, just kind of giving a summary of this requirement. And we can also change our query. Let's just look at our high priority entries. Now we've narrowed down from our list of what could have initially been thousands or maybe tens of thousands of requirements down to the specific requirements that meet this query and the specific columns of information that meet this view. And now we're going to take a look at how developers or testers or management or whoever else is involved in the process can define their own views and queries. If we click on the edit button next to view, we can take a look at the brief summary view that we were just using here. And we see that we have the name of the view and we have a set of fields, and for each field we can decide how many pixels wide we want the initial columns to be for that view. And so we can just add any of the existing field and section names listed over here by just selecting one and then clicking the button to add it to our view. And then we can also determine if we want to sort information based on the values in those columns. So that's how we define views, and we can add as many views as we want based on different ways that we want to display our information. We can also look at how a query is defined by clicking the edit button next to that, and here we see a button where we can add our own queries. Let's look at the query that we're currently using, and for that query, if we just double click on the name of the query, we can see we have a dialog where we can name the query, and then we had a set of rules and a condition that combines those rules. For example, we have a rule where priority equals a value, and if we wanted to, let's say we wanted to add a second rule. So we might have maybe author equals, and perhaps we would add the name of an author. And now if we go condition A and B, with this type of query, we would, when selected, we would only see those requirement entries that are high priority, and also the author was assigned to Tom. So that would more narrowly restrict our list of potential entries that we want to display. Let's look at some different ways of getting our information in and out of the requirement matrix. For example, if we click the list button, we're presented with a dialog where we can list all entries or those satisfied by the current query. We can list all fields or those included in the current view. And we can set what type of formatting we want to use when we output this report. If we click the import button, we can select the format of the document that we're going to bring in with our requirement information and determine how we want to handle new entries, modified entries, or other entries based on the criteria we select here as we bring that information into requirements. If we click print, we can generate a printed report from our requirements. And finally, if we click the report button, this uses the custom scriptable report generator built into WinAND. We have some predefined scripts to generate various kinds of reports, but this is a fully scriptable report generator, so you can create reports using whatever content and whatever format you want. Let's look at one of the examples here. We're just going to use, we're going to select this report script called current view and query. When we click OK, it's going to generate our report into our default browser based on this report script. And here we have, for each requirement entry, we have its name, priority, status, and summary. And we can scroll down through our default web browser here to look at the report we just generated. You'll normally generate a custom report out to be displayed in an HTML viewer or browser, but if you want, you can then open that into Microsoft Word and save it out as a Word document or a PDF or whatever format you want. We can edit individual requirement entries by just double-clicking on the entry, and it brings up our requirement definition field where we can edit all the fields of that entry. If we want to constrain our definition field to only show the fields in the currently selected view, we can set the checkbox definition dialog based on view, and then when we double click on the entry, we see we've restricted the number of fields to just include those that we're interested in this current view. To summarize, WinAND can be used to create a list of requirements to manage any type of project. You can create requirements by clicking the New button and organizing the requirements into different grouping structures by namespace, a group within a namespace, or the requirement name. You can assign a template to each requirement, and the template determines the specific types of fields and sections of information that you want to collect for that requirement entry. You can also use the matrix dialog, which allows you to view the requirements in a grid structure where you see columns of information determined by the selected view, which you can customize, as well as the subset of rows from our entire list of requirements based on a specific query, which you can customize. And then you can list the information from those requirements out to a delimited text file of information, out to a custom report, bring it into other types of applications like Microsoft Word, or put it out to a PDF file or so on. You can also import requirements and bring that information to create new requirement entries. Finally, for some projects, you may have system requirements in one document and various other documents with product level requirements, and you can provide traceability from your system requirements to the various product requirements that implement each system level requirement, and also traceability from the requirement entries to the various design diagrams and documents that are used to design your software system.